How many of the 18 mistakes hunters make after the shot have you already committed this season without knowing it? And how many of them cost you a buck you should have recovered? I have been hunting whitetails for 28 years, and I have lost exactly 4 deer in that time that I am certain were dead within 200 yards of where I shot them. I did not lose them because of bad shots. I lost them because of what I did in the 30 minutes after the shot. Every single one of those 4 recoveries failed because I made one of the mistakes in this video, and every single one of them was preventable if someone had told me what I'm about to tell you. The painful truth about deer recovery is that the shot is only half the equation. The other half is everything you do between the moment the arrow or bullet hits and the moment you put your hands on the animal. Most hunters spend hundreds of hours practicing the shot and 0 hours practicing the recovery. That imbalance is why the National Deer Association estimates that roughly 1 in 5 deer hit by bow hunters are never recovered. 1 in 5. Stay until the end because mistake number 18 is the one that haunts more hunters than any other on this list, and it is the easiest one to fix once you hear it. The first mistake is rushing to the deer before enough time has passed. This is the single most common and most expensive post-shot error in all of deer hunting. A deer that is not yet expired will run hundreds of yards further than it would have traveled on its own if you push it from its first bed. A gut-shot deer pushed 20 minutes too early can cover half a mile before dying in terrain you will never find it in. The general rule is 30 minutes for a clean double lung hit, 6 to 9 hours for a liver hit, and 12 to 24 hours for a gut shot. I know that waiting 12 hours sounds like torture. It is. I have sat in my truck in the dark for 8 hours, staring at the ceiling after a gut shot on a 4.5-year-old 10-point in west central Illinois, convinced the coyotes were going to find him before I did. They did not. I found him 140 yards from where I shot him, bedded against a fallen oak, dead in his first bed. If I had gone in at the 2-hour mark like every cell in my body wanted to, I would have bumped him into the next county. The hardest part of deer recovery is not the tracking. It is sitting still when everything in you says go. The second mistake is not marking the exact spot where the deer was standing when you shot it. The moment after the shot, your eyes should go to the specific tree, rock, or terrain feature directly behind where the deer was standing, not where the deer ran, where it was standing. That spot is your starting point for the blood trail. In the adrenaline rush, most hunters watch the deer run and lose the precise location of impact. They arrive at the general area 20 minutes later and spend another 20 minutes trying to find first blood because they are searching 30 yards from where it actually is. Before you climb down, pick a landmark at the shot location and burn it into your memory. The third mistake is not recording what you saw on your phone immediately after the shot. Take out your phone before you climb down and record a verbal account of everything: which direction the deer ran, which opening it disappeared into, whether it hunched up or mule kicked or sprinted flat out, any sound you heard when it crashed. In 30 minutes, the adrenaline will have scrambled every detail. In 2 hours, you will be arguing with your hunting buddy about which direction the deer went. The phone recording is a time-stamped account made at the moment of maximum clarity, and it has saved more recoveries than any piece of tracking gear I have ever used. I started doing this after a buddy suggested it on a hunt in Buffalo County, Wisconsin, and I have not taken a shot without recording the details within 60 seconds since. It takes 30 seconds. It is free. And on the 3 occasions where I needed it, the recording told me things I had already forgotten by the time I climbed down. The fourth mistake is not checking the arrow or finding where the bullet impacted before you start tracking. The arrow tells you exactly what you hit before you find a single drop of blood. Pink and bubbly on the shaft means double lung, short recovery, 30 minutes, and go. Dark red with no bubbles means liver, wait 6 to 9 hours. Green or brown material with a rank smell means gut, wait 12 to 24 hours minimum. A hunter who skips the arrow check and starts following blood immediately is making every recovery decision blind. I made this mistake on a doe in southern Pennsylvania, my 3rd season bow hunting. Followed blood for 200 yards, pushed her out of her bed, and spent the next 6 hours grid searching 40 acres of thick laurel in the dark. If I had walked back to the shot site first and checked the arrow, I would have seen the green material, known it was a gut shot, and gone home for the night. She would have been dead in her first bed 80 yards from where I shot her, roughly the distance across a large grocery store parking lot, and I would have found her at first light. Instead, I pushed her half a mile into terrain I could not move through in the dark and never found her. That one still bothers me. Every November I think about it. That doe was dead in her first bed, and I am the one who moved her out of it. Everything in this video, plus 60 more field-tested techniques, is in the Buck Hunter's Bible. 90 pages of deer behavior science, scent control, scouting methods, stand placement, and rut phase tactics with a quick reference card you can take to the stand. Link in the description below. QR code on screen. The fifth mistake is following the blood trail too fast and bumping a bedded deer. A deer that is hit but not immediately dead will often bed down within 100 to 200 yards, roughly the length of 1 to 2 football fields, if you do not push it. That first bed is its final bed in most cases if you wait. Push it from that bed, and it runs on adrenaline for another 400 yards into the thickest cover on the property. Every tracking expert I have ever talked to gave the same advice. When the blood trail goes from heavy to sparse, stop immediately. The deer is bedded within 50 yards. Back out. Wait 2 hours, return. The hunters who push through the sparse blood are the ones who never find their deer. I have watched it happen from a neighboring stand. A buddy hit a good buck in west central Illinois, waited 20 minutes, climbed down, and started following blood at a pace that was closer to a walk than a crawl. He walked right past the spot where the blood went from dripping to nothing. The buck was bedded 30 yards ahead in a ditch. My buddy walked to, within 15 yards, the buck exploded out of the bed, and that was the last time either of us ever saw him. If he had stopped at the sparse blood and backed out, that buck would have died in that ditch within an hour. The sixth mistake is blood trailing in a straight line without checking both sides of the track. Blood does not always fall directly below the deer's travel path. A deer running at speed with an entry wound on one side deposits blood in an arc, sometimes 3 to 4 feet, to one side of the actual direction of travel. Hunters who follow blood drops in a straight line miss the arc and lose the trail within 50 yards. The correct technique is to find each blood drop, mark it with a piece of flagging tape or a square of toilet paper. Then look for the next drop in a 4-foot radius around the marked spot, rather than straight ahead. The pattern of marked spots reveals the actual direction of travel, and it is almost never a straight line. The seventh mistake is contaminating the blood trail before a tracking dog arrives. If you think you are going to need a tracking dog, do not walk the blood trail. Mark first blood. Mark last blood. Back out and call the handler. Every boot print over that trail deposits human scent that competes with the deer scent and degrades the track the dog needs to follow. A buddy who runs blood-trailing dogs in central Georgia told me that the number one reason his dogs lose a track is not the age of the trail. It is the number of human boot prints on top of it. Hunters who grid search a blood trail for 3 hours and then call the dog have often made the dog's job impossible. Call early. Stay out. The eighth mistake is giving up when the blood stops. A hunter on an online forum years ago posted a story that stuck with me. He lost the blood trail on a scapula hit. That is a shot that impacts the flat shoulder blade bone and often produces minimal penetration and very little external bleeding. He gave up. 4 years later, he found the skeleton 100 yards from where the blood stopped. When blood stops, it does not mean the deer is alive. It means the wound channel sealed, the muscle tissue shifted over the puncture, or the exit wound closed. The correct move when blood stops is to slow down, work in expanding circles from the last blood, check every fence crossing and creek bank within 200 yards, because the impact of landing after a jump reopens wounds and forces fresh bleeding, and look for disturbed leaves, a bed impression, or the deer itself. The ninth mistake is not flagging the trail as you go. Hunters who do not flag their blood trail while following it walk back over it, contaminate it, and lose their reference points. Flagging tape at every blood drop creates a visual map of the deer's travel direction and speed. When you stand at your last blood drop and look back at the line of flags, the direction of travel is obvious. Without flags, you are guessing at direction from a single drop with no context. A $3 roll of surveyor's flagging tape from any hardware store recovers more deer per season than any commercial tracking product ever sold. Carry one in your pack, always. I carry 2. 1 orange, 1 pink. Orange for blood drops. pink for the last confirmed direction of travel. When you are on your hands and knees at 10 p.m. with a headlamp trying to find the next drop, having the entire trail flagged behind you is the difference between a systematic search and a panic spiral. The 10th mistake is not thinking about where deer go to die. Wounded deer travel downhill toward water and seek the thickest available cover. That is not a guess. That is consistent behavior confirmed across decades of tracking data. When your blood trail goes cold, stop following it and start thinking like a wounded deer. Where is the nearest creek? Where is the nearest drainage? Where is the thickest brush pile within 200 yards? Walk to those locations and search from there. I recovered a buck in South Texas brush country 3 seasons ago by walking straight to the nearest stock tank, 300 yards from last blood, roughly the length of 3 football fields, and finding him dead in the mud at the water's edge. The blood trail had been cold for 150 yards. The deer's instinct to find water led me right to him when the blood could not. Your grandfather knew this without reading a single study. Modern hunters follow blood drops until they run out and then stand in the middle of the woods wondering what to do. The 11th mistake is forgetting to check fence crossings and creek banks. When a blood trail disappears and you know the deer jumped a fence or crossed a creek, check where it landed on the other side. The impact at the landing spot compresses the wound and forces fresh bleeding. A deer that left no blood for 40 yards before a fence crossing, roughly the length of a bowling lane, will have a blood pool at the landing spot on the other side. This is one of the most consistently ignored tracking tips in deer hunting, and one of the most reliably effective. If there is a fence or a creek within 200 yards of your last blood, go check the far side before you do anything else. The 12th mistake is celebrating and moving the deer before documenting the scene. This is not a recovery mistake. It is a regret mistake. The hunters in your age group who recovered a significant buck and immediately started dragging it or field dressing it before taking a single photo have a story they tell with the same regret in their voice every time. Lay the deer where it fell. Take photos before anything is moved. The terrain, the position, the blood trail visible in the leaves behind it. That scene cannot be recreated once the deer is moved. You get one chance to document the moment. Take it. The 13th mistake is field dressing in the wrong position. Field dressing a deer on a downhill slope with the head lower than the body allows gut contents to flow toward the chest cavity when you open the abdomen. The result is contaminated back straps and a ruined cape. The correct position is the deer on its back with the head uphill, or hung from a tree limb by the neck if a strong enough branch is available. The difference between a clean field dress and a contaminated one is nothing more than which direction you position the deer before you made the first cut. I learned this by ruining a set of back straps on a November doe in Buffalo County, Wisconsin, on a hillside I was too lazy to reposition. Dragged her 10 feet uphill before starting. Saved the meat. Lesson learned the expensive way. The 14th mistake is waiting too long in hot weather. The standard wait times I gave you earlier, 30 minutes, 6 hours, 12 hours, are calibrated for cool fall conditions, temperatures in the 30s and 40s. In temperatures above 50 degrees Fahrenheit, warm enough to hunt comfortably in a single layer, bacterial growth on exposed meat begins within 2 to 3 hours. Above 70 degrees, which happens regularly during early bow season across the South and Midwest, that window compresses to 90 minutes. In hot weather, the priority shifts entirely. You recover the deer as fast as the shot placement allows and get it cooled immediately. Hunters in South Texas brush country during September know this problem personally. A gut shot at 3 p.m. in 85-degree heat is a meat recovery emergency, not a patience exercise. The 15th mistake is not getting the deer cooled fast enough after recovery. A deer cooling in the field in its own hide retains heat in the body cavity for hours after recovery. Open the body cavity fully. Prop it open with a stick. Remove all organs. If possible, get the carcass into shade or near cooled water immediately. Quarter it if you can. A deer recovered at 4 p.m. and left whole in 65-degree air until the next morning has borderline meat quality at best. The same deer quartered and hung in 45-degree air by 6 p.m. produces some of the best table fare you will ever eat. The difference is 2 hours of effort that most hunters skip because they are tired and want to get home. Look, everything I am walking through here is in the Buck Hunter's Bible. 90 pages, scent control, scouting, stand placement, rut tactics, plus a quick reference card for the stand. Link in the description, QR code on screen. The 16th mistake is not knowing your state's tagging and reporting timeline. Several states require immediate tagging of a deer upon recovery. Not when you return to the truck, not when you get home, at the deer. A game warden watching through a pair of Vortex binoculars from 300 yards away, the length of 3 football fields, issued a ticket to a hunter in my home state who sat next to his recovered deer, finishing his coffee before tagging it. Your audience assumes they know the rules from 30 years of experience. The rules have changed in multiple states in the last decade. Check current regulations annually, every year. The 17th mistake is dragging the deer out by the antlers and destroying the cape. Dragging a buck by the antlers grinds the cape against every rock, root, and branch on the exit route. A trophy-quality cape destroyed on a 400-yard drag is a taxidermy bill that cannot be recovered. The correct method is to fold the front legs back against the body, wrap the neck and head in burlap or a game bag if you have one, and drag from the rear hocks with the hair grain instead of against it. Or better yet, quarter the deer on site and pack it out in game bags. The antler drag method your grandfather used works fine when nobody is planning to mount the head. If there is any chance this buck is going on the wall, protect the cape from the first step of the drag. The 18th mistake is the one I promised at the beginning, and the one that haunts more hunters than anything else on this list. Not going back the next morning when you did not find the deer the night before. A deer not found the night of the shot should be searched for again, at first light the following morning. Night searching with flashlights misses deer that are visible in daylight 20 yards from where you walked past them in the dark. First light reveals blood you could not see under artificial light. It reveals a bed impression you stepped over at midnight. It reveals the deer itself, lying in plain sight, 50 yards from where you stopped searching, because your headlamp battery was dying, and you convinced yourself the deer was gone. I know a hunter in central Georgia who gave up at 11 p.m. on a November evening and drove home. He went back at 6 a.m. the next morning and found his buck frozen to the ground 40 yards from the last spot he searched the night before. In cool conditions, a deer recovered the next morning has fully acceptable meat quality. The hunters who drove home at midnight and did not come back found their deer in April, if at all. Every mistake on this list has the same root cause: impatience. The deer you shot is almost certainly dead. The recovery you lost because of what you did in the 30 minutes after the shot, not because of where the arrow hit, not because the deer outsmarted you, because you moved too fast, tracked too aggressively, or quit too early. The shot is half the job. The recovery is the other half, and the recovery half does not get practiced at the range. It does not get discussed at the pro shop. It does not get covered in the gear reviews. It happens in the dark, in the cold, on your hands and knees, with a dying headlamp and a knot in your stomach. And the only preparation that matters is knowing these 18 rules before you need them. And the recovery does not require a better bow, or a sharper broadhead, or a fancier scope. It requires you to sit in your truck, stare at the ceiling, and wait longer than your nerves want to let you. Same principle I covered in the Disappearing Bucks video. Patience is the one skill you cannot buy at the pro shop. Your next sit this season, bring a roll of flagging tape in your pack, keep your phone charged, and promise yourself that no matter what happens after the shot, you will check the arrow first and wait the full time before you take a single step toward that deer. That one decision will recover more bucks across your lifetime than any piece of equipment you will ever own. No Rage broadhead, no Hornady bullet, no elite archery setup will matter if you blow the recovery. The gear gets the deer down. The discipline gets the deer home. The next video covers what your arrow or bullet impact actually tells you, the exact color chart and the specific wait times for every organ and every hit location on a whitetail. So, you are never guessing in the field again.